Hey everybody, it's Katie and this is your April recipe. Actually, dessert recipe got more votes, but Mike made cookies a couple nights ago and I just can't have more cookies in the house right now. So I'm going to do a seafood main dish. This is a roasted lemon garlic shrimp. It is a main dish and it's something I like to make for company because to me, we don't eat seafood a lot, so it's seems a little bit fancy anyway, and it's something that requires almost no prep and almost no time, but it kind of seems like something that you probably put a little bit more time and energy into. It is not an original recipe, so I will link to the blog that I found it on, and in that place you will find all of the instructions to the recipe written out and all the amounts and everything. I'm not going to take credit for something that's not mine. I'll just do a walkthrough of how I make it, and I hope you enjoy. Alright, here are the few ingredients you need. You need 1 pound of shrimp. I always use raw shrimp because I feel like shrimp that's already cooked just is going to get too tough. So I always use raw, and if yours is frozen, you want to defrost it. We need 1 lemon, olive oil, black pepper. The recipe calls for salt, but I never use extra salt. It calls for 5 cloves of garlic and fresh thyme, but I'm too cheap. I never buy fresh herbs, so I use dried thyme, and you could make that substitution if you want. And then you want something to serve your shrimp over, so that can be like angel hair pasta would be perfect. We don't have any angel hair right now, so I'm going to use that other pasta you see. You could also use rice, couscous, really any kind of base you want. The original recipe calls for a 8x8 baking dish, like a casserole dish, but I actually don't have one. I just use a pie plate because it's the closest size that I have. You're going to take your dish and you're going to pour 1/3 cup of olive oil into the bottom. And you can just kind of spin it around to make sure that it coats the whole bottom. Into this I'm going to just put a little bit of black pepper. And then I'm going to zest 1 whole lemon. So this is the zest of the entire lemon. Okay, so that's all the zest, but save your lemon. And the last thing would be the thyme. If you have fresh thyme, you're supposed to use 3 to 4 sprigs, and you just remove the leaves from the stems. But I use roughly about a teaspoon of dried. And this is just to taste, so you can start with a 1/2 teaspoon, whatever you like. And you just sort of toss this around so that it's all coated in the olive oil. And this is going to go into a 400-degree preheated oven. And I just like to keep an eye on it. It probably is going to take about 10 minutes, but I usually check it at like 6 and 8 minutes and see if I need to stir it up at all. You definitely don't want it to get too brown, but you do want it to sort of roast and for the flavors to be infused in the olive oil. So I'm going to stick this in the oven. I've also got my water going for my pasta right now. While my pan's in the oven, I'm going to prep the lemon. So what you do is cut it in half. And half of the lemon you're going to set aside. You're eventually going to cut it into wedges for serving. But the other side you are going to slice into thin slices all the way through. I like to make them as thin as possible because we actually eat them. They get cooked with the shrimp, and then we actually like to just eat the whole thing, what's left of the rind and the flesh and everything. So I slice these thinly. You can remove the seeds along the way, but I actually don't really worry about it. We'll just pick them out later. That's about as good as I'll get there. The other side of the lemon, like I said, we can just slice into wedges, and we can just squeeze them over the portions before we serve. Okay. I'm also going to peel my garlic cloves so they are ready to mince when the time comes. And I forgot one ingredient. You do need butter. I always use unsalted. You're going to need 2 tablespoons. We'll get to that in a second. Alright, it's been 5 minutes. I just checked on my oil and gave it a little bit of a stir, but nothing is browning yet. It's just smelling really good. I'm going to prep my shrimp, which all you need to do, if they're not already deveined, you should devein them. And then you actually want to take the tails off, or whatever. If they have more shells, you want to take all the shells and tails off. And I actually save mine. I will put them in a Tupperware and freeze them because I can make stock using them. It just makes like a flavorful broth if you combine it with some vegetables. I don't like to waste anything, so that's what I do. I'm not going to show you how to do that. You can look it up online, but that's a little tip. Okay, so of course I get distracted by children running through the kitchen, and my oil went for a little bit longer than I planned, so it's a little bit browner, but it doesn't smell or taste burnt, so I think it'll be fine. Now we're just going to add the garlic, which I use a garlic press to mince. You can also just chop it finely, whatever you like. I again forgot my butter, so I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of butter. They were supposed to go in before the garlic. And you just let it melt, kind of like swirl it around until it melts. You're also going to add in the sliced lemons and your shrimp. I like to use the 31 to 40 size shrimp, but you can do any size that you want, and then adjust the cooking time. So if you use smaller shrimp, you're probably going to cook it for less time. Use larger shrimp longer. This is going to go back in the oven for about 10 minutes, but again, you just want to check and see that the shrimp are getting pink, but they're not getting like overdone. So I would say just until they're pink all the way through. Alright, back in the oven. Here's our dish right out of the oven. I'm going to dish it over the pasta. The last step is just to squeeze a bit of lemon over the whole thing. And you can pick out your lemons or eat them like we do. And but be sure to use all the sauce from the bottom of your pan. All that good oil and sauce and stuff. And there you have it. Enjoy.